Hello. I saw some confusion around the parable of a fig tree. Um, there, some people get confused about this. Obviously, the apostate church get confused about this because they don't have the Holy Spirit, such as the Torah movement, who also don't have the Holy Spirit. And it's quite simple for those who actually love God with all their hearts, minds, and souls. The parable of the fig tree. We often talk about the sixth seal of Revelation when this opens up and Satan is cast down out of heaven. It's described as well, it happened as a fig tree casts forth her untimely figs, if you're reading in the King James Version. And we often talk about this being a springtime event. And I guess, maybe not often enough we talk about why in this parable. But what I did a little bit of a write-up on this website that our brother made called watchmantopics.net. The link should be in the description, and I'm basically just going to read off that because I get more people see it if I make a video. So I'm just trying to get more people to see this, and then you can go and read all this along. Like if you can read, then you might as well just go to that website and read along, because I'm just going to be pretty much reading off what I already wrote down. But this is how it goes, right? So you got to know a little bit about, yeah, I guess you got to know a little bit about horticulture, right? You got to know a tiny little bit about a fig tree. And the only thing is that they're kind of unique. The other trees do this too. I think a pomegranate tree might do this, but they have two different crops, right? So you'd harvest them twice a year. There's two different seasons that a fig tree brings forth its fruit, and one's in the spring and one's in the summer, even as late to like early autumn, right? So they drop their fruit as well in these seasons. And the fruit that they do drop are the bad ones. Like you don't really eat them, I don't think. Although I don't know, we don't eat much fig over here. It's actually very expensive at the supermarket, but they're quite yummy. I've had some before; they're quite good. But people don't really eat them, so I don't know. I guess maybe people do eat the ones that drop to the ground. But from my like brief research a while ago, they're not like the good ones. And that's all you got to know. You Google it, like I can tell you that, but you just got to Google it. Right, a fig tree, they'll drop their fruit in spring, and then they'll drop their fruit also in summer, um, even up to, I searched this one up before I started the video, even up to sort of as late as early autumn. And why is that important, right? Yeshua tells you to learn the parable of the fig tree. He tells you this in at least two places. It probably is in Luke as well. I always quote from Mark 13 when I'm trying to tell this story, as well as Matthew 24 is a huge chapter, where Yeshua quotes a bunch of stuff as well. But so those are the two places I've got noted down. And so to take a little snippet from Matthew 24, he goes, now learn a parable of the fig tree. This is in the Olivet Discourse, right? He's describing all this stuff. He describes the fifth seal. He describes the sixth seal. He describes all this stuff. And he goes, now learn a parable of the fig tree. This is in verse 32. When his branch is yet tender and puts forth leaves, you know that summer is near, right? Not summer yet, but it's near. So likewise, when you shall see all these things, know that it is nigh, even at the doors. And you got to do some reading yourself to hear what all these things are. Read your Bible in Matthew 24. Then he tells you the same thing in Mark as well. Mark 13, he goes, now learn a parable of a fig tree. When her branch is yet tender and puts forth leaves, you know that summer is near. And actually, that's something interesting that's just standing out. He says her in Mark and his in Matthew. Unless I pasted that down wrong, does it actually say that? His in Matthew? It does. So you got the masculine in Matthew 24 and the feminine in the Mark 13. That might be kind of interesting, but I won't go too off topic. Right, so here's Mark 13. Now learn a parable of the fig tree. When her branch is yet tender and puts forth leaves, you know that summer is near. So ye in like manner, when you shall see these things come to pass, know that it is nigh, even at the doors. Right, same exact thing. It's a word for word, it's parallel, verbatim quote. Right, and just this time though, he actually tells you what it means to learn the parable and even how, like who's going to learn the parable. So how to learn it. He goes, Verily I say unto you, that this generation shall not pass till all these things be done. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. But of that day and that hour knows no man, no, not the angels which are in heaven, neither the Son, but the Father. Take ye heed, watch and pray, for ye know not when the time is. For the Son of Man is as a man taking a far journey, who left his house and gave authority to his servants, and to every man his work, and commanded the porter to watch. Watch ye therefore, for ye know not when the master of the house comes, at evening, or at midnight, or at the cock crowing, or in the morning. These are all different watches, right? Lest coming suddenly he find you sleeping, like Isaiah 56 style, in the last 4 verses of Isaiah 56. And what I say unto you, I say unto all, watch. So watching is just the opposite of sleeping. He's told us that here, and he's referencing a couple places. Proverbs 8, like verse maybe 34, as well as Ezekiel chapter 2 and 3. That's what it means to watch. Warn people so blood's not on your hands. But I'll read you this even in Proverbs 8. Verse 34, Blessed is the man that hears me, watching daily at my gates, waiting at the posts of my doors. For whoso finds me finds life, and shall obtain favor of the Lord. Right? So he's referencing this. He is the gate. He tells you that in John 10. You're supposed to rebuke in the gate. They hate the guy that rebukes in the gate. This is what watching means. Ezekiel 2 and 3 gives you a great definition as well. So what he's telling you here is if you watch, be a watchman or a servant, the day of the Lord won't come unto you as a thief in the night. Because what he's saying in this context is right now, because you're not watching, I had to tell you to watch, right? So you weren't watching. That's the context. So the day of the Lord comes on you as a thief. And this is what it means to learn the parable of the fig tree, right? To watch. Obviously, you have to know what he's talking about even. And you got to know, you got to read stuff like we're about to read, like Revelation 6 and Isaiah 28. You see that it's a springtime event, but he's only going to show you that if you're watching, right? And so I'm telling you that the meaning of learning the parable of the fig tree is to watch. And this is evidenced even in 1 Thessalonians 5, right? The brothers there have no need to be written unto about the times and the seasons. It starts off like this in verse 1. But of the times and the seasons, and of the parable of the fig tree, brethren, you have no need that I write unto you, for you yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so comes as a thief in the night. And like a noble Berean, you're supposed to read this and go, well, how do they know this perfectly? It's supposed to ring a bell. Didn't Yeshua say the day of the Lord's going to come as a thief in the night? So how do they know this perfectly? Well, if you read Mark 13, he tells you, if you watch, that's the only way you know this perfectly. So the guys in 1 Thessalonians 5 are watching. They're also doing all the stuff that the rest of 1 Thessalonians 5 outlines, like comforting the feeble-minded and all these things, right? They're fulfilling the royal law. And it says in there that the wrath of God is not appointed unto them for doing this. Right? So recall the parable. Now learn a parable of the fig tree. When her branch is yet tender and puts forth leaves, you know that summer is near. So ye in like manner, when you see these things come to pass, know that it is nigh even at the doors. Right? So when the branch is tender and puts forth leaves, aka it's blossoming, and summer is near, i.e. it's not actually summer yet, but it's near, that's obviously describing the springtime. No one's going to debate that, right? So what he's talking about is the early drop of the figs, not the main drop. Because the fig tree drops its fruit twice a year, right? So in this parable, he's talking about the springtime crop. And this is where it's interesting, right? This should interest you. This is why it matters. Because in Revelation 6, it talks about the sixth seal of Revelation being opened. And this is what happens. And I beheld, when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair. This is also described as a red dragon in Revelation 12. And the moon became as blood. And the stars of heaven fell unto earth, even as a fig tree casts her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind. you've got to understand, you've got to do a little bit of research. The Greek word translated as untimely is G3653 in the Strong's Concordance. It means unripe, right? So there's a link in the description where you can see the definition of this word, and it says, an unripe fig which grows during the winter, yet does not come to maturity but falls off in the spring, right? Again, so these figs, these untimely figs, are the springtime figs, not the summer figs, right? Because it's when summer is near. This is telling us it's a springtime event. And then Isaiah 28, which also describes the sixth seal of Revelation. You know this because Revelation 12 and Revelation 6 quote back to it. Starts off like this. It tells you not only when it's going to happen, but where. It's going to happen wherever the drunkards of Ephraim are. So woe to the crown of pride, the drunkards of Ephraim, whose glorious beauty is a fading flower, which on the head of the fat valleys of them that are overcome with wine. And this wine is pride. They stagger, but not with wine. They're drunken, but not with strong drink. Ephraim dwells with Judah in mystery Babylon. Mystery Babylon, her ramparts, which means her borders, are waters. Right? They're the younger brother of Manasseh, the people. They envy Judah. They've learned the ways of the heathen. There's many nations in that nation. They're a mixed melting pot of cultures, and they're the most powerful or most growing nation, and they're drunk on pride. So where is that? Woe to the crown of pride, the drunkards of Ephraim, whose glorious beauty is a fading flower, which on the head of the fat valleys of them that are overcome with wine. Behold, the Lord has a mighty and strong one, which as a tempest of hail, and as a destroying storm, as a flood of mighty waters overflowing, shall be cast down to the earth. This is quoting Revelation 12. The crown of pride, the drunkards of Ephraim, shall be trodden under feet. And the glorious beauty which is on the head of the fat valley shall be as a fading flower, and as hasty fruit before the summer, i.e., not yet summer, hasty fruit, the hasty ones before the summer, which when he looketh upon it saith, while it is yet in his hand he eats it up. Well, hasty fruit is a Hebrew word H1061, and its definition is the first fruits of the crop. Right? Once again, this is pointing us to the first drop of the fig tree, which is the springtime. But you didn't even need to know that because the rest of the verse leaves you without doubt. It's before the summer. Before the summer is obviously spring. Remember, Yeshua said this happens when summer is near. So even to be more precise, you could speculate this is at the latter part of springtime. And incidentally, that is when literal fig trees cast forth their figs in the late parts of spring, the springtime crop. Gordy's safe space. Okay. Oh, I didn't know that would delete his messages, but there he goes. I blocked him. So there's other places that talk about this. Micah 7, where Micah, and this is, by the way, what Yeshua quotes in Matthew 10 about your enemies being that of your own house. He got that from Micah 7. It was already written. Well, Yeshua says your foes will be that of your own house in Matthew 10, and talking to the servants of God. And in Micah 7 it says, you know, your enemies will be that of your own house. He's quoting this chapter is what I'm trying to say. And it starts off with, woe is me, for I am as when they have gathered the summer fruits. As the grape gleanings of the vintage, there is no cluster to eat. My soul desired the first ripe fruit. Right, so it's painting you this prophetic picture of woe is me on when they've gathered the summer fruits, because springtime's past, and the first fruits calling of God, which is the 144,000 in Revelation 14:4, it describes them as first fruits. They're already gone. They're out of the picture now at this point. These are they, it says the 144,000, these are they which are not defiled with women, for they are virgins, they have the key of David. These are they which follow the Lamb wherever he goes. These were redeemed from among men, being the first fruits unto God and to the Lamb. Right, so Micah 7's painting you this picture, and then go read the rest of the chapter. It even quotes Ezekiel 34, again about the watchman. And then Isaiah 34, again, verse 4. And all the host of heaven shall be dissolved. This is describing the sixth seal of Revelation as well. Read verse 1, 2, and 3. This is verse 4. And all the host of heaven shall be dissolved, and the heavens shall be rolled together as a scroll, and all their hosts shall fall down as the leaf falls off from the vine. Same idiom, right? And as a falling fig from the fig tree. And by the way, I'll just tell you that Peter quotes this in 2 Peter 3 about the host of heaven being dissolved. He says, seeing that all these things be dissolved, then what do we do? And he says, fulfill the royal law in his own way. And in Peter, he's writing to the elect in Babylon, right? He says that in his last letter of 1 Peter, in chapter 5, he ends with, the elect in Babylon salutes, elected together with you, salutes you, and so does Marcus, my son. But Babylon already fell like 500 years before he wrote that down. So he's talking about mystery Babylon. He's prophesying. He's talking to the elect in mystery Babylon, and he tells you to be mindful of the prophets. And then he goes on to quote Isaiah 34, which is all about the sixth seal of Revelation. And he waits until 2 Peter chapter 3, which this is where this quote is, to remind you as well, this letter, just like my first, is to stir up your pure minds by way of remembrance. He's reminding you, I'm talking to the elect in mystery Babylon, be mindful of the prophets. Then he quotes Hosea 6 to let you know that the 2,000 years that Yeshua will tarry for are almost up. And then he shows you Isaiah 34. He quotes Isaiah 34 about the heaven being dissolved. And what's in Isaiah 34 in the very same verse? The parable of the fig tree. So those that have learnt the parable of the fig tree know what Peter's telling you here. And he specifically was tasked to feed the sheep, feed the lost sheep, feed the lost lambs. So when God decides to reveal, and no one's known this for like 2,000 years, while Peter knew it, the Zadok priests in the Qumran community knew it, but no one, as the church goes apostate, this is for a time to come. God encodes these messages in the book like he always has done. Write this in a book, it's for a time to come and then forever and ever. This is just like that. And he reveals this to his servants in the last days, in the generation of God's wrath and the generation of his upright. He decides to show us this now. 2 Peter 3 quotes Isaiah 34. No one knows that. No one's seen that. That's not in footnotes of any Bible even. And even if people have seen it, they don't know what it means. And then Isaiah chapter 34 is all about the very elect. And the redeemed of the Lord will return and come of singing unto Zion, when they sing the new song of Moses. And the watchman over Ephraim says, hey guys, come up, let's all go up to Zion. So, and that's going to happen at the end of it. So that's the parable of the fig tree. It just means to watch, that's if you like, because people fuss about it, because Yeshua said to learn it. And, there's people that are being servants of God that might not even know yet. They're sharing their talents according to their several abilities. And people, they might be a bit like, what's that? Not sure if I quite get it, but they're probably already doing it. You know what I mean? Doing their several ability. But, it's right to fuss over it because, anyone that doesn't hear the words of that capital P prophet will be destroyed from among the people. So just like you have to go and learn what it means, when he said, go and learn what it means, I'll have mercy, not sacrifice. Same thing when he says, go learn the parable of the fig tree. A good Christian's going to go and read that and figure out what that means. And it means to watch. If you watch, he won't come unto you as a thief in the night. And it means it's a springtime event that Satan gets cast down over wherever the drunkards of Ephraim are. Old mate in the comments didn't seem to like it, that I implied that that was the United States of America, because it absolutely is. But you're not doomed if you're in that patch of land, because there's a remnant of Joseph who the wrath of God's not appointed to. And that's why Joseph replaces Ephraim in the numbering of the 144,000.